outtakes, director's cuts. Me and Jacob are here to put two directors head to head against one another and see which one of them, I don't know, cut from existence still feels too
It's a bit harsh, isn't it? It's very Thanos, harsh. Isn't it?
Yeah, very. Yeah. But whatever, they're gonna fight. They're gonna have a duke it out, and I can put the Street Fighter verses in the thumbnail. That's good. So this week's directors, we've got James Gunn, David Ayer. Of course, both men one will have headed up, the other one has headed up our filmic interpretations of the Suicide Squad. One of them to should we politely call David Ayer's a mixed response?
That's a polite way of saying it. An unpolite way would be like a bag of shit.
Complete dog shit, yeah.
Awful.
His Suicide Squad totally reminds me of like... Because Josh Trank also did this with Fantastic Four, claiming like, oh no, the studio rubbished it. There's a good movie in there I made somewhere. I'm like, is there though? I was watching a lot of it. It didn't look... Anyway, and the other one, again, we'll politely say people are cautiously optimistic. Another way of saying really, really excited. But, you know.
Yes, yeah. It looks so different immediately.
Unbelievably different.
It looks it looks colourful, this new trailer. It looks bright and colourful, which is kind of what they rebranded Suicide Squad to be at the end.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the start of it was very fitting in with the Man of Steel original Justice League. Well, before it got Joss Whedon's Justice League colour palette of just dull.
There's something really minor about the James Gunn Suicide Squad already that I've sort of noticed that I think sums up the difference between the two, which is... So David Ayers was always kind of like... I remember him doing this interview being like, this is like superhero movie 2.0. Like, you've never seen anything like this. It felt like someone who was grabbing hold of a property and being like, no, this is how I will do it. This is my version. This is how I'm going to improve it and better it. Where this small little thing in the Suicide Squad trailer, the guy who puts the thing in the back of Michael Rooker's head is the original writer and creator of Suicide Squad from the comics.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that feels like someone who's gone, I've read them, I enjoyed them, I am here to interpret them, but we are bringing forth the world of comic books instead of, this fucking superhero, you've never seen a movie like this, you know?
Yeah, you can guarantee that the original writer of Suicide Squad won't have had any... Well, it didn't feel like he had any input on the
It would shock me.
Especially not a cameo, but...
So I will be taking up James's corner, and Jacob will be taking up David Ayer's corner. And
lucky you.
I suffered last week with Michael Bay.
Yep.
So we're going to go for round one. Round one is awards. The simple rules are any positive awards that you have won over your career is a point. Any negative awards that you have won over career is a point lost. So going through James Gunn's, we have a fairly positive start, 2006 and 2007. Okay. Slither won awards at the Chainsaw Awards and the Saturn Awards. One of them was genuinely good. They're both positive awards. One of them it just says Filmmakers Showcase. So that's generally like, oh, this was a good movie. Let's talk about this movie. The other one was Highest Body Count.
Ah, wow.
Right?
That's very good.
Quite something. Then there was nothing until 2014, so a full 7-year gap for any awards. And unfortunately for James, both of them were at the Golden Raspberries for Worst Screenplay and Worst Director, which he shared with the other writers and directors of movie 43. But still involved in the project. There's 2 points lost. And then we bring all the way, well, not bang up to date, 2015 still feels like yesterday somehow, even though it was 6 years ago.
Jeez, yeah.
Where he won Hollywood Film Awards Blockbuster of the Year, the Critics' Choice Awards Best Action Movie, and the Saturn Awards Best Comic to Movie Motion Picture, and Best Director, all for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Fairly self-explanatory.
Come on.
Yeah.
Okay. What does that leave your total?
That leaves our total at 4.
4. All right. That's interesting. Okay. So, David Ayer's stuff. So, well, we'll start on positive, and then we'll work down. So, nominations. I'll touch on those. So the Georgia Film Critics Association got an award. His film, well, it didn't get an award. It got nominated. Sorry, for
Oof.
Sabotage. I've not heard of that one. I've
Nope,
not
no,
seen
same.
that one. But there you go. Also got a nomination at the London Film Festival for End of Watch, which again, another film I am yet to watch, but it looks positive.
Was End of Watch the one? Because I'm sure he did a movie. I can't remember which. This is bad of me, but I'm sure he did a movie that people went when Suicide Squad was coming out. People were like, "No, this is good that he's making Suicide Squad because he's made this other movie and it's basically Suicide Squad." Is that End of Watch?
I don't know. Maybe.
Cool.
All I know is End of Watch it's got Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena in it,
Right.
and they're LA cops. End of Watch also was nominated at the Zurich Film Festival for Best Picture. It hasn't won.
I was going to say they were all
though.
nominations. Yeah,
They're all nominations. He hasn't won anything yet. Although he also hasn't won any bad awards. Although again, nominated for he got nomination. Well, yeah, in Hall of Shame for Suicide Squad from the Alliance of Women Film Journalists.
fair.
He shared that award with Margot Robbie.
I mean, she was just doing what she was told. You know?
Yeah. Also picked up a nomination for Suicide Squad Worst Picture at the Razzies, but didn't win or lose that. So
God, what? I wonder what did win that. Like if
Worst Screenplay
ah.
specifically was where it was nominated. The winner was Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Do you know what? I had a sneaky suspicion it might have been.
Yeah.
It might have been Zach.
Other notable nominations in that year. So Dirty Grandpa, do you remember that one?
Jesus, that was that
With-
De Niro.
I think that was De Niro. Gods of Egypt.
man,
Hillary's
that movie.
America: The Secret History of the Democratic Party. And Independence Day: Resurgence.
Oof! What a year.
What a year. So I think out of all of those, I don't think Suicide Squad was the worst.
For screenplay,
Yeah.
bafflingly no. Yeah.
Somehow. So if it had been released any other year, though, I reckon it would have won that.
Strong
But
contender.
at the end of that awards round for David Ayer, he finishes on a solid 0, which
Oh.
for a minute I thought was going to win him it, because you went down to -2 at one point, didn't you, for James Gunn? And I
Yeah,
thought,
we took 2 points off. Yeah,
Is David Ayer gonna win for like 0? And then I'd forgotten somehow about Guardians of the
Guardians of
Galaxy.
the Galaxy.
Which, yeah.
So that means James takes round 1. Round 2 is the highest rated movie with the highest rated score on IMDb. So it's combining critics' reactions, audience reactions to really find the heart of whose people's favorite movie is from these directors. James's. Do you want to take a guess what people's favorite James Gunn movie is?
I think it could be Guardians of the Galaxy.
Unbelievably,
Oh,
yes.
Phenomenal.
Guardians has come out with a solid 8.0.
Oof. Very good. Very good. David Ayer didn't quite break 8. His highest rated films, they share the same score. End of Watch and Fury both have a 7.6.
7.6.
Which-
Oh.
Yeah,
Close.
out of all his films, they're the ones I recognise. I've seen one of them, and I enjoyed it at the time. So
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Which means 2 weeks in a row we've had a director completely run away with rounds 1 and 2.
Maybe we should add more rounds to this
have a- yeah.
down the line.
Because James is absolutely taking it. So the last round, the last discussion we'll have is who has made the biggest contribution to cinema. So with these two directors, it's interesting. Last week we took it the tactic of like, oh well, because Michael Bay and Zack Snyder have been around so long, or would this have happened if they didn't do X and whatnot? Whereas James Gunn and David Ayer's filmic history is, well, to sort of reference the start of the show, mixed to say the least. James is as well, you know? So there's the biggest argument I could make in favor of James, as someone who likes his modern work, right, is this a contribution to cinema? I suppose so. James Gunn's work on Guardians of the Galaxy opened up more eyes in one particular direction to superhero films. But we were in this period around 2010 to 2012 where superhero movies were dominating the landscape, and they were gaining their own fan bases. They were trying to win over casual moviegoers, blockbuster watch action movie fans, that sort of things. What Guardians managed to do was start to open the eyes of film fans who had washed away the MCU as it's just dumb, it's just commercialized, whatever. You're never going to make a quality film out of these. I spoke to quite a few people during my time at university who work in the film industry who, when someone says about superhero movies, they're all just trash, they're all just there to sell a product, someone would always say, have you seen Guardians? When they said no, they would always say, watch Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily like a superhero movie. It's the fact that it's so far out, set in space, other than the characters being Marvel characters, it has no real connection to it being a superhero property. Which, yeah, I think Guardians of the Galaxy was always going to get made because as Marvel were expanding, they wanted to move off into space, have some cosmic stuff coming in. But I think, James Gunn did such a good job on making that it allowed everyone to come to it, enjoy it. Like if you wanted to have someone start watching Marvel movies, ordinarily I'd say start at Iron Man, work your way up.
Sure.
It goes from most grounded to least grounded.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'd maybe say watch Guardians of the Galaxy first, just to get a taste.
Yeah, like
and
if
then go back to Iron Man and then rewatch our Guardians again as you come up to it.
If you know that like action movies and superhero movies aren't really the typical thing.
Yeah.
That I would absolutely recommend Guardians. The strength of Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, and it's remained consistent through the entire Guardians story, including Infinity War. Bafflingly, well, James Gunn contributed to the Guardians scenes for the screenplay for Infinity War, which is why they feel so authentic. It's all because all stories ultimately are pulled from like a list of like basic themes. There's like we did them in uni. It was years ago. I can't list them all now. One of the big ones is loss as a part of life. Guardians of the Galaxy kind of feels like an ensemble movie, like a team up movie. It's not really. It's the Star Wars movies. The Guardians do stuff. The Guardians have great things to do and say within those films, but they are Peter Quill coming to terms with that loss, which starts off with losing his mother, and then at the end of the movie, he holds out his hand symbolically to his mum, really to Gamora to accept sometimes you're going to lose the people you love. And then Guardians 2 is him dealing with the exact reason for that loss. He comes face to face with why he lost that person in the first place. And then Infinity War is him recognizing that sometimes you have to choose to lose someone when he pulls the trigger at Gamora.
Yeah.
He makes that, like, when he pulls that trigger, he has chosen, in his head, she's dead. For the greater good, for the benefit of the entire universe, he's had to choose to let go of someone he loves. And now we're going to move forward in Guardians 3, where not only has he lost that person and she's gone, there is someone around who looks like her, who speaks like her, who thinks like her, but it's not her. And how did he come to terms with that? And I think that's a brilliant, interesting story. And I think that's why they stand out above a lot of the rest of the Marvel movies, because they're thoughtful and they're emotional and they deal with real themes. What would your argument for David Ayer be?
It's going to be hard to compete with that, isn't it? Wow. Well, he's made a lot of military and police films, which we've got a lot of those already, but they're mainly based on his experiences. So he grew up, he moved around a lot, but he's had personal experience with LA and the police force there and seeing what they're like. I guess you could say that about anyone living in LA, I guess. But apparently he's like used personal experience to like put them in these films. Similarly, he was in the Navy for a bit, so that's where he's got some of his inspo for some of his other military films from. His first thing he did, he was a writer for ages before he was a director. So he directed, he wrote something called U-571 or 571. Don't know what that is, never heard of it. And then Training Day is another one. I've heard of that one. I don't know what it's about.
I have not.
And then maybe his most notable thing is The Fast and the Furious in 2001. He was a co-writer.
Really?
Yeah. Which is... Sorry, the cat is all over the notes. I'm going to move him to this side. Which is pretty notable. I'd say maybe, other than Suicide Squad, possibly the biggest... Well, it's one of the biggest franchises now. But yeah, he was there at the start co-writing some of that.
The thing that's weird about David Ayer is I don't disagree. I can't say he's not had experiences or whatever. What baffles me is if he's telling me he's writing from dealing with the cops and the army and that, I wonder why the details are so slim on the Bright. Have you seen Bright?
Thankfully not. I have not.
It's it's a take on the police and racism from the perspective who's only ever read about those things on Twitter. I swear to God. It's so brain dead. And I don't know, maybe that's the point. If you was he a cop? Is that what you're saying? When he's dealt with the police? Is that
I didn't see any reference to that. He used to paint houses.
Oh. What, and get in trouble?
For a bit. I don't know.
What are you doing up there,
graffiti.
David? We've told you about this.
Not graffiti. He's just painting someone else's house for them. What are you doing? I wanted it beige, not pink. I
mean, I've not seen any of his military flicks, so I don't really know. But that stood out to me as the comments and the takes in Bright are really, really they're so dumb. They're so dumb.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to say. I mean, so you're suggesting his contribution to cinema is he's been in the army?
Well, okay, no, it's not. I guess he's got more because he's been in the army and done, the Navy specifically, but because he has that actual experience, you'd know that going in to watch one of his things about that, potentially it would be more true to what the actual experience is. I mean, the only one of his war-based films I've seen is Fury, which kind of goes against this argument because it's set in the 40s. So there's not too much to say about that. But I remember enjoying how gritty and grounded it was.
Yeah.
There's a scene in particular where it's just tanks fighting basically. But there's a bit where you've got good guy tanks on one side and you've got your bad guy tanks on the other, and they're just machine gunning and shooting each other. And it almost looks like a scene out of Star Wars because the bullets and stuff that are going across, the way they've done them, they made them look like laser bolts almost because they're bright and shooting at each other.
Yeah.
Which when you see old original footage of Spitfires or tanks shooting, you see the whatever they are almost glowing as they go across, which I haven't seen done anywhere else. Often they just have shell go explosion, but the fact that it looked, in this probably isn't another good comparison either. In Attack of the Clones, in Star Wars, where there's just that they're fighting on Geonosis and it's all dusty and the clones are shooting away and it's just blue and red just constantly. Yeah. It looks proper intense.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
It looked like that, and it was original, not necessarily based on any past experience, but different, and it stood out to me. Well, I
can see some value in that. I think the thing with David Ayer is, as much as I'm quite happy to joke about him and the way he spoke about movies in the past, he's also one of the, I'd say, less than talented directors who I also believe has one of the biggest potentials for growth. actually.
That's
Because
fair.
because
Yeah.
one of the things that David Ayer has surprised me in over the past couple of years is because he couldn't take it originally when Suicide Squad came out. Like, it was all just like deflection, or the studio ruined my movie, blah 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 blah. Since then, I've seen more than one interaction with him on Twitter actually responding to criticism in a really rational way, in a way that shows a capability to grow and change and understand what he did wrong. Like, so he showed off, I think it was some concept art for like Harley Quinn. And he said, "Oh, this is the sort of thing we wanted to do. We were told no, blah 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 blah." And there was a woman who, in his comments, who was like, "To be honest with you, James, like not James, David, I'm not a fan of this design either. It shows a lot of the problems a lot of women had with Harley's design in the movie that came out." And then he proffered like an argument back, and she just gave a thoughtful response of like, "This is the problems with the way you introduced the character. You fetishized her, you ogled her, it was all male gaze. You literally stopped the movie at one point for us to look at her bra, you know, like blah blah blah." And he like tweeted back like, "Thank you for this thoughtful response that completely makes sense to me. As a man who's consumed like almost nothing but action flicks, I don't really stop to think about how these things affect people, but I'll be mindful of it in the future." And I was like, damn, if you pay off on that, if you really do like keep that in mind and keep pushing forward, because the thing about Suicide Squad, which is the movie of his that I've most recently seen, a lot of the really bad problems are actually in the edit. Like, the performances are generally quite good, and I don't think the script is really terrible. There's so many instances of like there's setup and there's no payoff, and it feels like there would have been payoff. Feels like in the script there probably would have been payoff, and it's been lost in the edit. There's times when characters are jumping fucking around like the world, it feels like, between like scenes. It's unbelievable. A lot of the problems with that movie are in the edit, not necessarily in the direction. It's not the movie I think should have been made, but I don't think it was like terrible. I do think he can improve, you know? So while I don't think he's pushed that, I don't think he's done enough yet, I think he could one day, you know? Maybe we could revisit David Ayer in a couple of years' time and see if...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would certainly like to think so. I didn't really think it would be possible to make too much of a good argument with David, but I had one extra retort with James, which was just that early on he was involved filmically in a lot of young people's sexual awakenings because of Sexy Velma. I know he didn't direct those movies; he wrote those movies. But there's many LGBT people in the world that would like to thank James Gunn for Sexy Velma. So,
but yeah, fair enough. You touched you mentioned David Ayer on Twitter.
Yeah, sure.
James Gunn is also pretty phenomenal on Twitter, also, because he uses it and he's just like honest and truthful and stuff. Like when the Suicide Squad trailer came out, someone jokingly tweeted, "Oh, I'm just gonna put it out there, get it in early. #release the Gunn cut." And he found that and replied to it and said, "No, this is the Gunn cut. This is going to be as it is," which isn't necessarily, good for James Gunn getting the cut of his film made. It's more Warner Brothers. Yep, you're learning. You're seeing that actually just let directors do their thing.
Yeah. And also, in regards to that kind of like, I mean, I know I do understand that it was a joke, the release the Gunn cut, but like, there's so much toxicity with the release the Snyder Cut and restore the Snyderverse crowd. I think it was good on James Gunn's part to immediately squash, because what he's essentially saying is this like all movies is a movie. It's a collaborative effort. You know, say what you will about studios and execs and how stupid they can be and how badly decisions can be made. Every movie ever is a collaborative process between the crew, the cast, the director. And yes, even the studio. The studio will have asked him to remove things. The studio will have asked him to add things. That's just the nature of modern filmmaking, especially with big superhero franchises. And it's good that James has immediately squashed that kind of, even the joke of it. Like, nah, moving past it. It's just a movie. That. We're not going to do a fucking director's cut or an ultimate edition. The movie's going to come out. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to move on.
Yeah. So already he's seeming a lot more, I don't know, less...
I mean, in terms of...
the word? It will come to me in about 5 minutes or once we finish recording, and I'll text you it, and you're going to have to edit it in of like Google Translate just saying it for me. Yes. Yeah.
I think one of the things that... Because this is the thing about David Ayer having the potential to grow is, again, going back to Twitter, James Gunn has had a lot of controversy around his life because of old jokes that he made, which were completely distasteful and they weren't funny. He has apologized multiple times on that account, and it's usually, well, I say usually, I genuinely can't think of something off the top of my head. He's using his platform as a source for positivity.
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
That's why a lot of people have forgiven him for those things, because he doesn't just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, can you please stop bullying?" You know what I mean? It's just like, genuinely, it seemed funny to me at the time. I don't know why. I get it. I'm sorry. I've been doing all this, and I'm going to continue to do all this, and hopefully, it's going to make everything okay. And I would like to think, I always like to think the best of people. I would like to think that people like David Ayer in the meantime, you know, if it really, the thing about David Ayer that stands out to me from having this discussion, especially from what you said from Fury, I don't really want to see you make any superhero movies, David Ayer. It doesn't really seem to be your forte. No. I don't want to see you make any fantasy or modern fantasy movies. I don't want to see Bright 2. But even though it's not my jam, if you've got some things to say or some things to present about the military, in either way, in either positive, negative light, whatever, you should always write what you know.
Yeah.
You probably do have a good voice there, you know?
Yes. Yeah. He's... Yeah, looking at his past filmography, he seems to have found his little niche, and where it's recently sort of wavered and gone a bit wrong is when he's tried doing stuff outside of that. So like Bright, like Suicide Squad, they haven't been wholly accepted positively, but generally speaking, End of Watch, Fury, his two highest rated ones on IMDb, he's doing what he knows. He's doing war films or police dramas or police films.
Getting told off for painting houses, presumably. That's what End of Watch is about.
It was where he got that from, yeah. So if he sticks to that, someone's got to make those. Yeah,
end of the day. And I hope they're good.
Be that guy.
Yeah, so completely lost to James Gunn on this occasion.
Yes, unfortunately so.
But unlike last week's loser, Michael Bay, I've got a bit of faith potentially in David Ayer.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening/watching to this episode of Director's Cut. Let us know in the comments if you've got any ideas for any directors you'd like to see go head to head in this show and what you thought of it as well. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, or if you've been listening to us on your favorite podcasting app, hit that follow button for more as well. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Bye.